Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Professor Barucha, for encouraging our students and for taking us through the DNA of SaiU's liberal learning, which is creating groupings of concentrations of courses around certain topics that pull from many departments and disciplines across, which makes SaiU an unparalleled institution in dealing with today's real-world challenges and problems and creating leaders of tomorrow. Welcome all of you. Today is the final round of our first ever edition of War of Words, the International Interschool Debate Competition, exclusively for the students of grade 11th and 12th. It is now time to meet the team behind this event. We will go by the rule of ladies first. Anusha Surendran, Assistant Manager Communications. She is the host for this meeting and has taken up the important task of managing the entire virtual stage. Anusha, may I request you to come and say a hi to the audience? We'll circle back. Next is the person who most of you know already by now, Ms. Nandini Uchil, Director Admissions and Outreach.
Hello, everyone. Good luck to all the contestants. Do well. Thank you.
These two will overlook the entire competition. And in case you have any issues or concerns, please write to them on the chat and they will come back to you with solutions. Then it is the turn of our chairpersons who will be keeping time, without whom there would be no decorum. Ridhiman Sarkar, Assistant Director in Admissions and Outreach.
All the best to all the participants.
Nilayappan K, Associate at the Communications team.
Hello all, wish you all the best. Yeah, thank you.
Anusha, feel free to pop in whenever you're ready. And I am Neha Goenka, Director Communications and Student Life, the moderator for the evening. For the benefit of our audience, let me quickly take you through all the rules. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to present their argument. The chairperson will record this time carefully. A warning bell will go off at 2.5 minutes. After this, the speaker will have 30. This is the warning bell, guys. So please make sure you take a note of it. After this, the speaker will have 30 seconds to conclude his or her point. Any extra time taken will result in negative marking. Interrupting a speaker is forbidden and might result in removing the said speaker. All participants must treat each other with respect. The organizers reserve the right to remove any candidate who engages in disruptive behavior at their own discretion. It is imperative for all participants to keep their cameras on at the time while they are speaking, even during the time of rebuttal. Now, some pointers for the rebuttal. There will be time allocated for the rebuttal. After all the speakers for the topic have presented their speeches, and I repeat, only after all the presenters have presented their speeches, the participants will be invited to rebut their opponent's point. The speaker can, I beg your pardon, can only argue or question the opponent from the other side of the topic. All speakers seeking to rebuttal must send a message to the moderator within 30 seconds of the last speech made. The questioner must confine themselves to questions and not make statements, comments, or ask rhetoric questions. Each participant can make only one rebuttal. The time allocated for each argument, the rebuttal and the response, is a maximum of 120 seconds. The chairperson will determine the time. The deciding criteria are broadly based on expression, articulation, delivery, diction, style, argument, and ability to present your point of view. The decisions of the judges are final and binding. Only the final results will be revealed and no further details will be divulged. Any request to this will be treated as denied. Please note that the entire event is being recorded. By participating in this competition, you have consented that the organizers and or the university can use and publish the data and or the recording or any part thereof at their discretion. Now, coming to the most important introductions for the evening, I would love you all to meet our judges. All our contestants will be judged by distinguished members of the SaiU board and faculty. Without any further ado, please allow me to introduce you to our eminent judges. First and the foremost, the chair of the judge panel is Dr. Don Deacle.
Hi, everybody. Hi from the United States. I can't wait to hear the debate today. Thank you for inviting me to be a judge, and good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Deekal, for joining us. Dr. Deekal is currently the fourth president of the American University of Nigeria, before which she was the president of Orkhon University in Mongolia, the first university to open after the transition from a communist regime. Prior to that, Dr. Deekal was president of the American University of Iraq, provost at the American University of Afghanistan, and dean at the SP Jain School of Management in Singapore. A lawyer by training, Dr. Deekal worked in both Afghanistan and Iraq to help bring Western-style law programs into the university curricula. In 2015, when she became president of Orkhon University, she led efforts to increase enrollment from across the nation, increase ties between the university and the international business community, and move the university towards implementing an all-English curriculum. Before becoming a senior administrator, Dr. Deekal was a faculty member at Singapore Management University, the National University of Singapore, James Madison University, and Dartmouth College. Dr. Deekal has held leadership positions outside of academia as well, such as council member for the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, leadership specialist and global knowledge manager at McKinsey & Company, where she helped launch the McKinsey Center for Asian Leadership. As a scholar of psychology, leadership, law, and management, Dr. Deekal has published in academic journals, presented at international conferences, given keynote addresses for Young Presidents Organization, and also served as an analyst for television and radio for the then US President Obama and his strategies in Asia and the Middle East. Once again, Dr. Deekal, thank you so much for joining us. Introducing our next judge, Mr. Nalin Buckley.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for inviting me on this judge panel. And good luck to all the participants. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nalin. Nalin is the Director of International Affairs and Outreach at SaiU University. He began his career in Mumbai in advertising account management at JWT Contract, O&M, Edge, Saatchi & Saatchi on several blue chip accounts such as Cadbury's, Raymond Woolen Mills, IMRB, and Richardson Hindustan, which is P&G. In 2002, he moved into broadcast journalism and communications, including 12 years of experience as a news magazine producer at Rogers Media, Omni TV, in Toronto, playing a key role in establishing diversity programming with a focus on university arts and science initiatives. More recently, he served as Director of Media and Communications at SRM AP University in Amravati, developing key messaging and branding strategies. He earned an MFA from USC School of Cinema TV in Los Angeles, followed by projects in educational instruction and script writing with production houses in Los Angeles, Mumbai, and Toronto. Thank you, Nalin, again. And moving on to our next judge, Dr. Shelindar Swaminathan.
Hi, everyone. Looking forward very much to learning from this, what you have to say over the next hour or so. Heard a little bit of the previous discussions, previous debates. I must say this is just a phenomenal level of competition, and it really, sort of says a lot about the knowledge that you have acquired and the way you present it. So good luck. Looking forward to it.
Allow me to introduce you to Dr. Swaminathan. He is the Dean Designee at the Division of Social Sciences at SaiU University. His broad research interests are in the formulation and application of credible research designs to examine questions of relevance to public policy. In recent work, he has worked on understanding the impact of health insurance expansions on utilization and health in both the United States and in India. Dr. Swaminathan returned to India recently after spending nearly 2 decades in the United States, holding diverse academic and research positions at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and Brown University. He has a PhD in economics from the University of Southern California and is an adjunct faculty member in Brown University's Department of Health Policy and an investigator at the Providence Veterans Administration. I now welcome the House to give a large round of applause to all our judges who have spared the time and look forward to all your arguments with enthusiasm and immense alertness and enthusiasm again, sorry. Now, before we begin, I request all the attendees, except for the speaker, to keep their mics off. And with this, I invite the House to listen to the arguments of our first speaker. The topic for today is, while parts of India are facing acute water shortages and there are rivers in India with excess unutilized waters, we must link all rivers in India so as to enable water transfer between these rivers. Arguing for the motion from Garden High School, Kolkata, we have Shawan Malik.
Ma'am, am I audible and visible?
If you could be a little louder, it will be nicer.
Ma'am,
Slightly.
am I audible and visible?
Yes, yes, much better. Thank you.
There was a problem regarding the brightness, so I turned the color off. Okay. Actually, put the color on.
All right, no problem.
Okay, ma'am. So, shall I start?
Yes, please.
Thank you. India is not running out of water. It is water which is running out of India. Though this is not what many people would tell you, it is what the statistics show. India, with a tropical monsoon kind of climate, receives more than 1 million gallons of water per person per year. But we are able to store only 30 days of rainfall while the rest flows out into the sea. Per second, at an average rate of 38,000 of cubic meters of water is flowing out of Ganga into the Bay of Bengal. Moreover, seasonal variations, uncertainty, and fluctuations in the rainfall affect the economy of our country. This makes it imperative to look for a good alternative which can enhance groundwater, reduce regional disparity of water distribution, eliminate crop failures, and encourage less carbon transport. Indeed, river interlinking is such a good alternative of managing the surface water. It is the reason why the Supreme Court instructed the government of India to complete the project of linking all the rivers of India within 10 to 12 years. At this point, many of my oppositions would worry that I would propose to create a huge canal to bring the Ganges water to the south, as Agasthamuni carried the Ganga in a pot to the south. No, their assumption is wrong. What river interlinking means in the present era is to connect the nearest two river basins and eventually link up all the river basins of India. The chief advantage in India is that most of the rivers flow almost parallelly, so it is relatively easy to link them up. Well, many of my friends would complain that it is not so easy as it sounds, because with it comes large-scale uprooting of population and ecology. Yes, it's true, and it is inevitable. But if you have a good foresight, you cannot reject that in the long run, the river interlinking would make large tracts of dry and barren lands fertile, which could be afforested. Do you fear that afforestation would bulken the already costly project? Well, there is a 42,000 crore fund of compensatory afforestation fund, which is lying unused for many years in India. Though initially parts of the population has to be displaced, in the long run, their upcoming generation would see a cleaner, greener, and brighter future, as solving the problem of water crisis would lead to development of industries, agro-based industries, and fishing. Do you fear that relation with Bangladesh might strain? Well, our government can pull up a few more awards for Mujibur Rahman and manage Bangladesh. Also, it is not that we are going to take half of Ganges and supply it in Madhya Pradesh. A small part of the water would be diverted, while the majority would continue flowing into the Bangladesh. There are always sections of people with vested interest who would like to drag every issue of India into courtrooms and debate. But do we have time for that? Nearly 20% of our food production depends upon groundwater, and it is depleting really fast in India. This makes it imperative for us to switch to surface water. And is there any other way to store surface water than digging canals and dams? And if you have to dig canals, is it not better to use the already existing rivers than dig up new canals? There is only one decade in our hand, and the time bomb is ticking. Please give it a thought. Thank you. Thank you. So my speech comes to an end.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If I may, please, may I request the judges, if they don't have a problem, it will be encouraging to our students to have you with their cameras on so that they can address the arguments directly to you. If it is an issue, it's not a problem. So whichever way works better for you all, I leave it to your discretion. Thank you. And now, after Shaun's arguments, now we move on to Rashmika Vinakota, who is from Johnson Grammar School, ICSC, IBDP, Hyderabad, who will be speaking against the motion.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. May I begin?
Sure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rashmika Manakoda here to talk about why interlinking river should not be implemented and the negative impacts it has. All of you are familiar with the water shortage crisis in India. Water scarcity is a very serious problem for a nation, as it results in hundreds of people without a drop of water left to drink. This can be a result of overpopulation and overutilization of water bodies like rivers, as they contain water that is mostly unfit for human consumption. Experts say that by linking rivers, unutilized water can flow to regions of scarce water and give them access to water again. And there are a lot of advantages to river interlinks. But we also have to take into account any negative impacts it has on society, the environment, or the economy. But before we get into interlinking rivers, let's see how the present situation is in India. Nearly 80% of India's fresh water is utilized in the agricultural industry. Over half of India's cultivated land is under water-intensive crops. India uses at least twice the amount of water to grow 1 unit of food versus comparable countries. India's farmers mainly rely on groundwater and borewell despite large dams and reservoirs, and 60% of India's districts have been declared critical on underground water. River linking is a project of linking two or more rivers by creating a network of manually created reservoirs and canals, providing land areas that otherwise do not have river water access and reducing the flow of water to sea using this means. It is based on the assumption that surplus water in some rivers can be diverted to deficit rivers by creating a network of canals to interconnect the rivers. What is the Interlinking River Project? This project will connect 60 rivers of India, including the River Ganga. This project is divided into three parts: North Himalayan River Link constituents, Southern Peninsula components starting from 2005, and the interesting interlinking of rivers. This project is being managed under the National Water Development Authority of India, NWDA, and Ministry of Water Resources. Coming to the disadvantages of river interlinking. Interlinking of rivers will cause a huge amount of distortion in the existing environment. In order to create canals and reservoirs, there will be mass deforestation. This will have such a great impact on rains and in turn affect the whole cycle of life. Usually, rivers change their course and direction in about 100 years and so. And if this happens after interlinking, then the project will not be feasible in the long run. Due to the interlinking of rivers, there will be a decrease in the amount of fresh water entering seas, and this will cause a serious threat to marine life system and will be a major ecological disaster. And due to the creation of canals and reservoirs, a huge amount of area which is occupied by the people will be submerged, leading to the displacement of people, and the government will have to spend more money to rehabilitate these people. The amount required for these projects is so huge that government will have to take loans from foreign sources, which would increase the burden on the government and the country would fall into a greater debt trap. In conclusion, the interlinking of rivers has many disadvantages to ignore. Well, this might be the solution now, but we cannot depend on it solely. There are some other things we can do to recycle water to prevent wastage. Rainwater harvesting is an extremely effective strategy to utilize rainwater. Using stormwater to water plants also can help. Like these, there are a number of other little things that we can do every day to save at least 1 liter of water. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to listen to the arguments made by Irtika Zafar from GEMS New Millennium School, Dubai, who will be speaking for the motion.
Good afternoon. I hope I am audible and visible.
Yes.
So I'll begin. Good afternoon, evening to the respected adjudicators and esteemed opponents. My name is Irtika Zafar and I firmly stand for the motion that we must link all rivers in India so that as to enable the water transfer between these rivers. Now let me start with some successful river projects, interlinking of river projects which have been placed in India. The Par-Tapi Narmada Link project. So the main aim of this project is to provide irrigation for 2.3 lakh hectares by transferring water from Par, Auranga, Ambika and Purna rivers to water-short North Gujarat Kutch areas. The benefit cost ratio was 1.95 and it supplied 21 megawatts of hydropower. Let's move on to the second project, the Kosi Mechi Link project. The main aim of this project is to provide irrigation benefits to the water-scarce Mahananda Basin command in the districts of Araria, Kinshaganj, Purna area. The benefit cost ratio was 3.6 and it produced an annual irrigation of 2.15 lakh hectares. What is basically interlinking? It is the interbasin water transfer from the water surplus rivers. Now, water surplus means that these areas are already providing enough water supply to their people inhabiting that areas. So, this is basically the interbasin water transfer from the water surplus areas to the water deficit rivers or regions. Some major facts which need to be taken into account are the Indo-Gangetic rivers, which are perennial since they are fed by rains as well as the glaciers from the Himalayas, and the peninsular rivers are, however, not so seasonal because they are rain fed only by the southwest monsoons. Now, due to this, Indo-Gangetic plains suffer from floods, whereas the peninsular states suffer from drought. Hence, the excess water can be diverted to ensure equitable distribution. So this project basically is divided into two components, the Himalayan component and the peninsular component. And the Himalaya component, we would have two subcomponents, which would be connecting the Ganga and Brahmaputra to the Mahanadi basin and connecting the eastern tributaries to the Ganga with the Sabarmati and the Chambal river system. Moving on to the peninsular component, we would have four subcomponents from Mahanadi and Godavari to the Krishna, Kaveri and Pennar, Ken to Betwa, which is already in play happening in 2021, the west flowing rivers to the south of Tapi and linking the west to east rivers. What I aim is that a joint venture between NWD and the project company will be established. Secondly, considering Indra possesses a multi-party system, therefore the opposition parties will behave as watchdogs and call out the central government for any shortcomings which take place. This will increase water supply, irrigation potential, mitigate floods and droughts, and reduce regional imbalance in the availability of water. Considering people would be asked to displace, the people inhabiting that area would be notified on prior basis and places of the area. An afforestation drive would be started to compensate for the loss of flora and fauna. Despite the huge water resources in the region, its management has brought the country to the brink of mayhem, causing a striking difference in the ratio of the resources. Thus, to overcome this problem of haves and have-nots, the interlinking system of rivers is the best solution, as not only it aims towards the equal distribution of water resources, it also enhances and ameliorates the agriculture sector to a large extent, which is the primary sector of India. Therefore, I preach equity and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Irtika. Now, from Garden High School, Kolkata, speaking against the motion, we have Aryavir Das.
Ma'am, am I audible and visible?
Yes, all the best.
Thank you. The river interlinking project, if completed, it could be one of the biggest engineering feats in the history of mankind, but it could also be the greatest man-made ecological disaster. A very good evening to everyone present here. Rivers are an integral part of India, and they form the main water source for most of India. The river interlinking project is not a start and end project. It is meant for the long run, and in the long run, it will do more harm than good. The entire project is based on an outdated understanding of river ecosystems, which has been constantly changing over the years. For such a grand project, the ecological, social, and legal challenges have not been studied to the full extent. The project has also been highly criticized on environmental grounds. It is feared that implementation might cause vast forest tracts to be submerged, which in turn will displace communities and wildlife and also destroy the lifestyle of many people. The project will also result in transforming water quality and microclimatic conditions, which will lead to consequences for public health. Let me cite an example. In the Ken-Betwa linking project, around 5,500 hectares of tiger-inhabited forest land will go underwater. Tigers are already an endangered species, and displacing them from their homelands will cause many more tigers to lose their lives. The project is based on a surplus deficit theory, which means the excess water from rivers which flood during the monsoons will be transported to rivers with less water. But this theory is not based on the present climate change. A recent analysis by IIT showed that rainfall had decreased in the surplus river basins in the past 50 years. In this case, diverting water could wreak havoc for both river systems. You might say that digging canals might be helpful, but I would like to point out one instance. During the monsoon season, the volume of water in the Ganges is around 20 lakh cusecs, and a canal would only be able to divert 70,000 cusecs, which is less than 5%, and it would still result in floods. In a country with low economy, a project of such high proportions and high cost and with a high chance of failure should never be approved. This is because if the project fails, the cost of every product will skyrocket, and the poor will have no food, and there will be massive death and destruction. Rivers are not the property of particular people or entities. They belong to all life in this land. This famous quote by Sadhguru clearly portrays the situation we are in. Diverting and interlinking rivers is a step which will hugely affect the people and wildlife of this country. Thus, people sitting in high posts whose livelihood does not depend on these rivers should not give a go ahead to this project before thinking about the dire situation India might find itself in. Thank you.
Thank you. Sudiksha Basu from Sri Shiksha Yatan School, Kolkata, will be now speaking for the motion.
Thank you, ma'am. So here we are again, talking about the age-old but still extremely pertinent problem, water shortage. For years, we've been taught how to combat it, and I'm sure by now we've all learned to turn the tap off while we brush our teeth. But is that really enough to fight the colossal behemoth that is water scarcity? This brings me to the motion of the day, a concept so simple a kindergartner could understand it. You take something extra from someone who doesn't need it and give it to someone who does need it. No wastage, no problem, everyone's happy. But if it were really that simple, we wouldn't have been debating about it today, would we? A very good evening to my dear audience. I'm Sudiksha Basu speaking for the motion of the House, and today I plan to approach the motion a bit differently. I think the main advantage of linking the rivers in India is quite explicit by now. Water for everyone. But I think you would agree, dear audience, that the worst thing we can do while dealing with the environment is overlooking the drawbacks that our actions might bring. And that is exactly what we are not going to do. Side proposition firmly believes that the answer lies in tackling these disadvantages and then implementing the action. The motion in itself does not need to be refuted, but what does need to be discussed is its execution. We agree that the problems highlighted by the opposition are very relevant, but they can be avoided or reduced with sufficient forethought. Dear audience, the most critical part of coming to a conclusion with a topic like this is seeing if the advantages compensate for the drawbacks. Now let's see about that, shall we? Linking the Ganga and Brahmaputra rivers will get rid of floods that torment over 1 million people of these regions every single year. It'll lead to mass afforestation, an increase in area under irrigation, boost agricultural production, and reduce transportation costs significantly for the long run. Not just that, over 3,000 tourist spots will emerge, bringing both social and economical advantages. Let's not forget the electricity being provided from hydroelectric plants for thousands of rural households, and most importantly, 400 million people get the most rudimentary necessity ever, water. In conclusion, I would like to say that with history being my witness for this, every great movement has had its drawbacks. But what always made these movements great was their ability to overcome these drawbacks. If executed well, the Indian River Linking project could be path-breaking and could help overcome water scarcity issues all over the world. I ask you, dear audience, why be this afraid of change? Why be afraid of amelioration? How long can we be this afraid? And how long do we even have? Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudiksha. We now move on to Advik Unni from Jen's New Millennium School, Dubai, who will be speaking against the motion.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, Advik. All the best.
3, 2, 1. Panel. The motion before us debaters here today is that this House believes that while parts of India are facing acute water shortages and there are rivers in India with excess unutilized water, we must link all rivers in India so as to enable water transfer between these rivers. And I'm strongly against this motion. Firstly, I'd like to clarify a few things. I would like to emphasize the word all in the motion, all rivers, not 50, not the 2 or 3 rivers that are close together, but all 400 rivers throughout India, as the motion says, which the proposition have seemed to miss or ignored. Now to my points. Firstly, I fully support that droughts and floods should be mitigated, and linking rivers could be a mediocre solution in an ideal world. But the problem is that this world is far from ideal. Countries do not get along. States in India too have their quarrels. And in such a world, it is impossible for this large-scale endeavor that not only takes into account the different states of India, but also its neighboring countries to work. And hence, I oppose this motion. Now to my points. Number one of the many things that is forgotten is that many of the rivers originating from the mountains, the main perennial ones that usually overflow, flow through different countries. In this, Satluj, Ganga, all flow through different countries. Now, essentially, these rivers are the rivers that overflow and have surplus. So that's what we're talking about over here. Now, by interlinking these rivers, you're essentially diverting flow of this water that belongs not only to India, but to other nations as well. This is a seed that can start geopolitical crises between countries, especially ones that have a history, like the nuclear-empowered India and Pakistan. For example, let's take an example over here. If India were to create channels from the Indus River, linking it to the rivers at the south, it will prevent Pakistan from receiving their agreed upon amount, which was provided by the Indus Water Treaty, which essentially violates the agreement that India signed, which is a seed for political crisis. Now, secondly, in India, there is dispute already over water in states. For example, the Kaveri water dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, or the dispute over the Chambal River in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. For such a big project, the consent at the national level also becomes mandatory, as states will be selfish for their own water consumption needs, as seen by the above examples. One cannot assume that states will magically become altruistic overnight and be willing to share their surplus water with other states. That surplus water which they would likely have stored for bad days when they have droughts. Even if they're compelled to do so, tensions would exist between the states which would undermine the unity of India as a whole. Now, rivers are an integral part of our life from the beginning, and any kind of human intervention can prove to be destructive. For example, the completion of the river interlinking project, many dams, canals, reservoirs will have to be constructed, due to which the surrounding land will become swampy and not suitable for agriculture, the main purpose why we are diverting the water, which is essentially counterproductive to why we're doing this. This can also reduce production of food grains, which is counterproductive. Now, taking the water of Ganga towards the Kaveri, 79,297 forests will have to be submerged in water. So with all that I've said today, I strongly hope that you vote for our side of the house. Thank you.
I now invite Ashrit Narayan from PS Senior Secondary School, Mylapore, Chennai, to speak for the motion.
Can you hear me? Am I audible, visible? Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Great. So, a very good evening to everyone present here. I am Ashrit Narayan here to stand for the motion. I'd like to explain, as my previous proposition members did, the essence of water distribution, the interlinking, and that is taking from your surpluses and giving it to your deficiencies. Now, I'd like to go upon why this is so effective, and I'd like to explain that through a model that I've come up with, a model for the interlinking of rivers in India. So the first step of this model is to segregate rivers which are surplus and rivers which will not give problems to other countries, because I agree with certain opposition members about how some rivers will give problems to other countries based on political issues and other things. But we do, India, as opposition members said, is a country with 400 rivers. We have many rivers we can choose from, and potentially connecting all of them will give us a lot of valuable benefits. Explaining into it further. So first we check for segregate the rivers, check for the eligibility to link, and then we check for land integrity where we should link these rivers. And then we begin the construction process. Now, I'd like to give a few promises on construction that should, and standards that should be followed with respect to these construction processes. And the first one is sluice gates in each river linkage, because with this, we'll be able to tackle the problem of pollution. Because when we keep water stagnant for a little bit, let it sediment and purify it before sending it to another river, we are solving the pollution shift problem between rivers. And at the same time, if we're able to develop micro habitats of different fish species living in each respective rivers near the linkage area, we'll be able to transfer fish from regions where they have been displaced from that respective river back to that river, thereby maintaining our fish population. Now, I'd like to propose the formation of a joint committee that oversees the construction and the funding of the entire process for each linkage process, and of course, manage course prediction patterns for rivers, as rivers change their course gradually in a course of 100 years or so on average. These course prediction patterns will create accommodations and additions to each linkage project and make sure it remains efficient as it moves through with its phases in construction. I believe funding is not an issue because on average, each project receives thousands of crores of money for each linkage project, not the entire project, for each linkage project. I'd like to give emphasis on that. And so funds will be divertible for all my proposals and for all the construction norms that will be followed. So, and also we can use a lot of this money in proportion to assisting displaced people, people whose lives have been or will be changed because of this entire process. Now, I'd like to compare the ratio of land which is wasted in construction or for use for linkage to the rejuvenated land, because the 200,000 hectares of land is a huge amount of land that we're actually bringing under productivity and irrigation in compared to the land which is wasted. General benefits such as droughts, floods, food security, navigation routes, recharging groundwater, and etc. are always there with this project. But benefits of the model are the pollution shift, the fauna hazard with aquatic fishes, and accommodations for river course change. Now, our naysayers will always say that unpredictable future patterns will always be there, and we can never argue with this based on different types of outcomes that will come. But I can always say, don't look too far to the future. Face each problem now, and we will make India a water power. Thank you.
Next, we have Titash Majumdar from the Heritage School, Kolkata, who will speak against the motion.
Yes, can you hear me and see me?
Titash, you're a bit faint. If you
Hello?
can...
Can you hear me and see me now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Titash Majumdar, and I am debating against the linking of rivers in India. First of all, the Interlinking project aims to transfer surplus water from rivers into others with a deficit of water to prevent wastage. Now, surplus and deficit are anthropogenic terms, and you cannot apply them to natural resources like rivers. In India, the snow-fed rivers have a surplus of water during monsoons, while the rain-fed rivers have a deficit of water during dry seasons, and it's completely natural. Water flowing into the oceans is not a waste of water, but a part of the hydrological cycle that we need. The project justification is based on math, engineering, and mainly popularity politics, where it should have been based on primarily ecology. Math cannot solve all our problems. For example, a person urinating or sweating would be mathematically considered losing water, but I, for one, really hope we never take measures to curb those in order to combat dehydration. Okay, apart from theory, let's talk about some learnings we've had from the past. The Tagas-Segura link, the Amu Darya and Sir Darya diversions, and the Indira Gandhi Canal project have all given us plenty of bad examples. In Spain, the water quality of the Tagus River has deteriorated. Both rivers' ecosystems have been destroyed. Protected land has been cut down, all the while mostly benefiting major companies and not the farmers. The RLC, formerly the fourth largest lake in the world, has all but disappeared due to the diverting of the Sir Darya and Amu Darya rivers that led into it by the Soviet Union in the 60s. The Indira Gandhi Canal is a major part of the greening of the Thar Desert, which has led to waterlogging, increased soil salinity, and can even be linked to worsening locust outbreaks and irregular monsoons. Finally, if river water is redirected, the flow rate of these rivers will decrease, which will cause problems for everyone. The slower flow rate will allow ocean water to diffuse into rivers and salinate them, ruining the ecosystem of our precious deltas. It would also reduce silt distribution into the surrounding areas, causing a buildup of silt at the bottom of rivers and making them shallower and unnavigable. Slowing flow rate means slower drainage, which means flooding would become even worse during the rainy season. And since we are linking rivers with canals, the areas affected by flooding will increase. Also, distributing the same amount of water into more areas will increase the surface area of the water, which means during the dry season, water can evaporate even faster. Both problems of flood and drought can actually worsen because of this project. River linking is different from domestic plumbing and can't be treated the same way. If insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, then what does that say about us as a society? Instead, let's invest in sustainable methods like rainwater harvesting, wetlands preservation, and proper management of river catchment areas. Otherwise, soon we will be at the point of no return. Thank you everyone for listening. This concludes my speech.
Coming to the last speaker who will be making a motion, who will be making a for the motion here is Ayush Gupta from the Heritage School, Calcutta.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Good evening to everyone present. I'm Ayush Gupta here to speak in favor of today's motion, arguing that we must link all of India's rivers to enable the transfer of water. But this discussion shouldn't be a question of whether or not we link India's rivers. It's a question of when we should do it, because India is facing the deadliest water crisis in its history, and the worst is yet to come. The population in India is expected to increase to 1.7 billion by the year 2050. That would require about 450 million tons of food grains, and the irrigation potential would have to be increased to 160 million hectares for all crops. And the problem is that through conventional sources, the maximum irrigation potential that could be created is about 140 million hectares. India's overuse of groundwater, which accounts for 67% of current irrigation levels, is not only unsustainable, it's insufficient. And by linking India's rivers and transferring water from water surplus rivers to water deficit regions, we hit two birds with one stone. Firstly, if storage reservoirs can be built on these rivers and connected to other parts of the country, regional water imbalances would be reduced and additional irrigation potential would be generated. And secondly, linking rivers evens out the unwarranted swings between droughts and floods in the long term. The side of opposition would try and make this project seem less of a plausibility by bringing up its expensive price tag, so to say. But understand, in the last 6 decades, floods have cost India 4.7 lakh crore, and that's 12 zeros. And in the next 6 decades, that number is only going to increase by an unprecedented margin unless we take action. And floods don't just cost money, they cost human lives and human households. On the other hand, more than 50% of the population has no access to safe drinking water, and about 200,000 people die every year for lack of access to safe water. I mean, we're too privileged to be debating in a Chennai-based university while ignoring the cries of the unfortunate victims of the water crisis in Chennai itself, and other cities for that matter, rural and urban both. We need to curb the regional water imbalances in India if we wish to restore people's livelihoods. The long-term strategy to the water crisis lies in the interlinking of rivers by building a networks of dams, reservoirs, barrages, hydropower structures, and canals throughout all geographical regions of the country. And since opposition speaker Arya Veer, I believe, brought up the Ken-Betwa link example, I would like to bring to notice how projects like the Periyar and the Polavaram river project serve as excellent examples of what we can achieve as a country. And India needs to live by the precedent set by these past examples and projects and other successful projects in other countries like China, South Africa, and even the United States, keeping in mind two main things. First, the interlinking project is a multi-state issue that should be overseen by a committee for state consensus building and negotiations. And secondly, interlinking has to take place after a reconnaissance survey and a detailed study to minimize any troubles to the environment or aquatic life. And a subcommittee for environmental preservation should take that onus. Furthermore, opposition members brought up how all of India's rivers being linked is not plausible, but understand that linking rivers is a gradual process aimed at reaching a water equilibrium over the next few decades. And lastly, if several opposition members brought up environmental concerns, but the House needs to remember that if India doesn't work to link its rivers and balance water levels soon, it may be too late to protect these lands from succumbing to inevitable floods and submersions anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to the last speaker of the House, Vishnumaya Deepak Chandran, who will be speaking against the motion, is from GEMS Modern Academy, Dubai. Vishnumaya, the floor is yours.
Ma'am, am I visible and audible?
Yes.
Okay. In this debate, we have a country that produces over 70 lakh engineers annually and has always sought to implement water conservation, and a river linking plan proposed in the 1970s, almost 50 years ago. Honorable adjudicators, if the interlinking of rivers could have been done, it would have been done. On side opposition, I believe that this in itself is ample proof for why this project, while perhaps the utopian dream, can never be the reality to tackle water shortage. And if you don't believe me yet, allow me to present 3 key points to prove this to you. Firstly, the vast negative environmental impact. 4 key points under this. Firstly, as a project that primarily relies on dam and canal construction, it brings risks of earthquakes by harming the delicate seismic balance of India and the deforestation of over 26 million hectares of forest land. Secondly, the idea that this project brings less drought and flood is fundamentally flawed. Taking the examples of states like Maharashtra and Gujarat, which have the most dams, they actually have the highest drought and flood frequency due to large amounts of silt brought by rivers compounded when they are linked. Thirdly, with over 80% of river water in India being polluted, this would cause a transfer of toxic water among areas, destroying wildlife and risking human health. Fourthly, the natural water ecosystem, which can be destroyed by even a slight shift, will be faced with disrupted migratory paths and water temperature shifts, leading to mass extinction of flora and fauna, in particular in deltas. Secondly, the negative human impact of this project. 2 key aspects here. Firstly, hundreds of thousands of humans who live along the riverbanks will be displaced. While side proposition can claim that compensation will be conducted, India has had a poor rehabilitation record, with people displaced in the Narmada Valley project are yet to be compensated. Their livelihood and cultures, which are so deeply interlinked to the river, will be destroyed. Secondly, this will turn to amplify existing water sharing disputes between states and cause international disputes with border countries like Bangladesh, causing high levels of communal and national tension. Finally, the inefficiency of this project and better alternatives. Now, while this project claims significant hydropower and irrigation benefits, the potential damages it costs makes the proposed rupees 560,000 crores overpriced and inefficient. Moreover, the project would take years of development, and science has now completely disregarded the fundamental basis of this project. That is the whole concept of river deficit and surplus, and the concept that water is wasted upon ocean drainage that side proposition has continuously brought up during this debate. In light of this, several alternatives can be implemented with the same goal. Small-scale river interlinking projects have been proposed to prevent intermixing of fragile ecosystems and generating local employment. Local projects that use primitive, self-sufficient water conservation methods, along with clean, modern technology and the cleaning of overpolluted rivers, have been identified as less intrusive, cheaper, and more efficient. While Proposition's utopia of a single undrying river with clean hydropower and irrigation seems perfect to solve India's water crisis, they fail to acknowledge that the reality is ridden with problems and seem only too happy to ignore the pragmatic details. Hence, this cannot and should not stand. Thank you.
With this, all the contestants have presented their speeches and their arguments. We now have 30 seconds for the contestants to log in their requests for the rebuttal. The requests will only be taken after the 30-second slot is over. Anything made before will not be entertained at this point. I will call out the 30 seconds once it's done, please. Arivir Das.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question for the fourth speaker from Proposition. I believe it was Ashrit Narayan.
Let me just confirm that for you.
Yes, that is.
From the... All right. It is Ashvik.
You clearly stated that the government has formed a calculated when rivers will change their course, but nature cannot be controlled or predicted. What will happen once they have started a project and a river suddenly changes its course?
You see, REV, there's a slight clarification to be made in the statement. Rivers don't change course in a year. They start gradually changing course over hundreds of years, on average 100 years. And that's why I say in my model, I have a committee which predicts and it's possible to predict to a certain extent how a river will change course based on weather and climate, and makes the necessary additions and constructions and repairs or whatever to the different linkage projects as it's going on, and even after it's going on as part of the management process. I hope this clears your doubt.
Thank you. The next rebuttal is from Ayush Gupta.
Right. It's to Rashmika, I believe is her name.
All right. Rashmika?
Right. So, Rashmika, you clearly oppose the idea of linking rivers, but you didn't really provide a model or a solution to the water crisis, apart from saying that every day we can individually save water. And considering how 82% of all rural households are without piped water supply, and even in urban areas, 15 million people in 15 cities have no access to safe and affordable water. I mean, these are hard facts that individually saving drops of water can't solve. So how would you provide a solution to this problem or to this crisis?
Well, in present times, I believe the government is transporting a number of gallons of water to rural areas. I believe that's what they're doing presently. And I think interlinking of rivers is not possible for the government to carry out, or if it's a fail, I'm sure the government will be able to find some of the solution for that, or they would continue whatever they're doing right now.
Okay. Then I call upon Advik Unni.
Yes. My question is to Shayun or Titash. Anyone can answer of these two. Now, I'm giving you an analogy which is related to this. I just want your opinion and thoughts on this, all right? In this analogy, let the water that in the rivers be money, and let states be the people, all right, who belong to a particular country. Now, you wouldn't expect these billionaires to give their shares or give their money to poor people, right? It has never been done, nor will people do it. I mean, people don't have money, like the poor people don't have money, but you wouldn't expect these billionaires to give stock or money to these people, right? Because they're not altruistic, neither are these states. So why should these states give water, which is more valuable than money, to the other states, which may not have that much water? Why should they do that if these billionaires are not giving money to the poor people as is? Because a comparison can be made with that.
Ma'am, can I answer it?
Yes, please.
Okay, dear opposition, I think your metaphor was clearly misplaced because you were comparing water with money. But keep in mind that money cannot flood your house, whereas water can flood your state. Money cannot ruin your farmlands, but water can ruin your farmlands. Remember that. So excess of water is not good. So you might want to donate just a little portion of it to the people who do not get it, your fellow countrymen. Thank you.
All right. Then I have Shaun Malik.
Yes, ma'am. My question is to the second last speaker of the opposition. I cannot remember her name. So sorry.
Second last from the opposition, right? I'll just pull it out. Are you talking about Titash?
I cannot remember the name.
So Titash was against. So you want someone from the for, right?
No, ma'am. I am speaking in the for, ma'am.
So it's Titash then. Titash Majumdar.
Maybe. Okay, ma'am, you were speaking in the second last in the opposition, right? So you had said that rainwater harvesting can be a good alternative in spite of our river linking project. But every city has a maximum rainwater storage capacity, and it is on the verge of exhausting in cities like Chennai. So in spite of this drawback, how can rainwater rainwater storing can be an effective alternative to river interlinking? If you could please explain that.
Yes, I said rainwater harvesting is one of them, not just the only method that we can use to conserve water. If you remember correct what I said we should also preserve our wetlands, which act as natural filtration systems, and we should properly manage the river catchment areas, which also function as watersheds, which catch rainwater much more effectively than we could. And also, yes, you mentioned that the big cities have exhausted their rainwater harvesting places, but what about others? What about even if each domestic household managed to have a rainwater harvesting system installed, then we would catch far more water than we are. What I'm saying is we are not doing it effectively enough right now. We're wasting money on this interlinking project and which will only hurt us in the long term, instead of using the traditional methods that used to benefit us sustainably. And if we use these effectively, we'll only gain benefits for the long term so that our posterity can get water as well.
Okay, well, thank you for your question, answer.
Thank you. We next move on to Ashit Narayan.
Yes, ma'am. My rebuttal, my question, in fact, is from, I believe, the third speaker of side opposition, Advik Unni. So, Advik, I agree with you on the political tensions that it could cause. But why do you assume that we should first link politically important shared rivers first? When, like Ayush said, there's a span of time to this. We can achieve water stability with indigenous rivers, then focus on reaching consensus with countries, right? Why are you focusing on the political situation so much?
See, because the thing is, right, the perennial rivers, the rivers that usually overflow, the ones that we are relying upon for the excess water, they are the rivers that are usually in the political, geopolitically, dispersed among different countries. You have Nepal, Bangladesh, and you have Pakistan, all have a slight control over these perennial rivers, the ones that we mainly rely upon for water. So if we can't get water from those perennial sources in the first place, how will we supply that to the southern part where, we basically rely upon for, droughts and stuff? So if we don't fix that problem, it will cascade down because there won't be surplus water anymore because you're not solving the root cause. So that's why I said we should solve that first if this problem is to be sorted anyways. So that's my logic behind it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very well. Hitash Majumdar has a question.
Yes, my question is for the fourth speaker of the 40. I think it was Ashrit.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that we can transfer fish from one river to another for our own benefit. And if that's true, I'd love to have hilsa fish be available in all rivers across India. But each river has its own unique water conditions, such as pH and oxygen availability, that allow for specific species of fish to exist in the area. And this is for a reason. How would your model prevent the problem of invasive species?
Let me give you a clarification on that. I believe there's a fundamental misconception in your interpretation of my model. Here's what I meant by this. When fish are displaced from the natural habitat, yes, I agree with you. They do suffer and there is a hazard for their lives and their population. What I meant by transporting is transporting the fish to back to their native environment where the fish originated. Because inevitably linkage is going to cause migration, unexpected migration of these fishes from different areas. So by maintaining microhabitats and transporting them back to where they came from, by effectively acting as a police or as a protection force for these fishes, we're able to thereby negate the hazard of this problem. I hope this answers your question.
Okay. Moving on to Vishnumaya Deepak Chandran.
Ma'am, my question is for the third speaker of team proposition. I believe Sudiksha is back in the meeting, if I'm not wrong.
Third would be Sudiksha. Sudiksha, are you here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I had some network issues.
All right.
Yeah, so my question is that during your speech, you spoke about how many of the disadvantages proposed on opposition can be easily tackled with foresight, right? Now, if these problems could really have been so easily tackled with foresight, why has this project not seen the light of day for over 50 years, 10 different governments, and in a country that produces over 70 lakh engineers and policy specialists every year?
So I would like to reiterate my points. I think that I completely agree with the problems that come along with this project. And I know that it has been delayed for a really long time, but that is because of that is why we're debating about this topic in the first place, because there are disadvantages, but the advantages overpower the disadvantages in the long run. And what we are talking about is that after sufficient planning, if this project is relevant or not. I know it is going to be a long drawn out process, but the advantages in the long run are evidently very the advantages do overpower the disadvantages. And I would like to say that also you talked about how this project has been overdue for a very long time. Dr. Kalam, he was in favor of this project, and he implied very confidently that this would benefit the nation in the long run. So what are we waiting for?
Thank you.
Okay. Rashmika, please go ahead with your question.
My question is also to Sudiksha Basu. So, Sudiksha, in your speech, I heard that you were talking about hydroelectric power and how interlinking and building canals between rivers would increase the availability of hydroelectric power. And I just wanted to know, because there are lots of other renewable sources through which electricity is being harnessed, like solar panels, wind power, biomass, geothermal energy. And I want to ask, like, if there's already a lot of renewable resources available for electricity, and is interlinking of rivers so worth it that there are a lot of disadvantages such as deforestation, and is it worth to displace people and destroy natural homes and forests for animals and people?
Yes, I in my speech I did mention the advantage of hydroelectricity, but the hydroelectricity from this project is not going to be the main source of solving the electricity crisis in India, right? It is just one of the extra added advantages of this project. And I know you were talking about the people that will be displaced in the long run, but also there are going to be many jobs produced uh, uh, with tourist spots tourist spots emerging, and also the places where there were floods occurring annually. Over 100 million people would get their livelihoods and their households back. So I think that completely is a good is a good explanation for all the disadvantages that come with this project.
Okay, for the benefit, because Sudiksha said that she's missed her turn because of some internet or connectivity issue. Sudiksha, this is your turn in case you have a rebuttal question for anyone.
Yes, ma'am. So my question is to the first opposition, Ms. Rashmika. You mentioned that there are other ways to combat the water scarcity crisis as well. But what other ways what other ways can you come up with that will contribute to the social economical situation of the country in other aspects as well, apart from the river linking project?
I can talk about ways to save water right off the top of my head, but I did talk about harvesting rainwater, and this can be done individually. My house is equipped with the rainwater harvesting, and I've noticed how much rainwater it has saved over the past 7 years, and I feel it is a really effective strategy, not individually. I mean, if there are rainwater harvesting for individual houses, it may decrease the amount of water it needs extra from the government or privatized companies or whatever. And that water may go to other areas where, water deficit areas and rural areas.
Give me a moment, please. We have a contestant who's raised the hand. I just wanted to understand what was that for.
Yes, ma'am. So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to check with you. I just noticed that in the chat, someone had asked me a question a while back about the source for one of my claims. Should I be answering that via the chat box, or?
No, you can answer it here, and you could read out the question for the benefit of everyone else.
Yes.
And who raised that question?
So Ayush Gupta had asked me saying, could the last opposition speaker provide a source to her claim that states like Maharashtra have the highest drought of flood frequency? So my answer to that would be, I actually took that claim from a report called the Humanitarian Snapshot Report of 2019, conducted by the Indian government, which spoke about how over 72% of all districts in Maharashtra are experiencing drought, in a significant percent, and most of the large floods in the past years have been experienced in Maharashtra. So I hope that answers Ayush's question.
All right. Thank you. With this, we come to the end of the official part of it. However, this is not the end of this. I request Dr. Dawn Deacle to take over the floor or the virtual screen in this case and address the House. May I please request you, Dr. Dawn, to share your views and comments and invite your colleagues if you feel the need to, and then announce the results, please.
So thank you very much. What a great experience this has been to be a judge for this wonderful debate. I'm so happy to be the chair of this panel. The reason it was taking us a while is because you made it impossible for us to figure out who the winner was. I mean, all the arguments for, all the arguments against, all the different delivery styles. My goodness, I couldn't be more proud of what I saw today. And I'll tell you what I saw. I saw the future. And I couldn't be more proud of these 10 students from India and Dubai and how they conducted themselves, how they did the research, how they prepared. When I think back to myself in secondary school, I could not have done what you did. So I'm just amazed. And I want to just say how proud I am of you. And when I think about SaiU University hosting this event, and I think about SaiU University being the youngest university in India, hosting this wonderful debate on a topic so important for our time, it is just really timely, because all universities on the forefront of education are looking at the curriculum of the future. What will the curriculum of the future look like? And as Vice Chancellor Barucha said in the beginning, it has to be interdisciplinary. We have to collaborate. And to collaborate, we have to respect each other and understand each other's cultural differences and different viewpoints. And when I think about the best way to teach those skills, it's through debate. Now, debate is key to any democracy. The free debate is key to any democracy functioning well. And so the fact that you're already at such a high level with these skills, I'm just so proud of you. I really see the future in you. And when I say the future, I think one of you could possibly go on to be the founder of the company that could be the Exxon Mobil or the Facebook of water, because we don't really have a company that's functioning at that high of a level about water. And water is so important, and it's going to continue to be important. So I want to plant that seed in you to think about that. Who might be the entrepreneur to become the leader of the company that's the Exxon Mobil or Facebook of water? Please think about that. Now, with debate, what are some of the things that the skill sets that you're learning? Well, you're learning to do research. You're learning how to manage information and package information. You're learning how to persuade with that information. And I think with your education so far through secondary school, because you're at grade 11 and 12 in secondary school now, you have been rewarded for being right. And science and math always give you a right answer and a wrong answer. And now you're at that point in your development where you'll be choosing a university and you want to learn beyond right and wrong. You can have all of the right answers on your side, but if you can't persuade policymakers to listen to you, then having all the right answers won't do you any good. So it's equally important that you can persuade, you can debate, you can put your arguments forward, and debate helps you do that. And what made it so difficult today is that the topic, there is no right or wrong answer because there's science on both sides. And so the fact that you really grappled with it and showed respect for each other during the rebuttal, you are on the right track for absolute success. And so I can't wait to announce the winner. But before I do that, I would like to call on my colleagues to offer also some insights and feedback for you. I'll call on Professor Shelindar first. So if Shelindar can give us a few comments for our students, that would be fantastic.
Great, thanks, Dawn. And thanks to all the students. I must say, sometimes you sort of look at the clock, sort of say, okay, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes done. And this debate was just so good that, it ended and I felt, okay, this could have continued and I've still continued to enjoy it. I mean, it was just a fabulous, high quality debate. As Dawn mentioned, extremely civil. I mean, and I think it, again, you always hark back, and as Dawn did, to the time when I was in, say, 12th grade or 11th grade. I mean, these were, again, we knew these were important topics, but I don't think we were ever in a position to actually, articulate our position, think about the issues. Congratulations to all of you on doing that. I just wanted to mention, again, the fact that this topic, I mean, again, as someone I think mentioned, one of the participants about Chennai, it's been around forever. I think when I was in, even in middle school, and this is 1980 in Chennai, when, this issue, especially every summer, used to come up, water used to slow down to a trickle. Many households, including ours, there was no pipe water, so there was only this sort of hand pump. If some of you know what that is, so you use the hand pump, and I think, I mean, again, I sort of just wanted to mention that, you had about 3 or 4 buckets pumped, and that was all everyone could pump, because after that, the physical toll on the body would take over. So there was always a natural constraint on how much you could actually extract in terms of water. Right. I think now, obviously, with these high-rise buildings and water being pumped up, the water shortage, groundwater shortage, is obviously at a very high level right now, which is why this topic again becomes so paramount. But I just wanted to say, I think this will always be an issue. I think, as someone mentioned, of relevance to India. With its rivers, and also the inequity in the distribution of rivers across the states. But congratulations to all of you. I learned a lot, as I expected I would. So as Don said, I mean, I think, looking forward to, hearing about who the winner is, but also I just wanted to say congratulations to each and every one of you. Top-notch debate. I've gone to high schools with good debate teams, but I can say that this was a high-quality debate. So congratulations again. Thanks.
Thanks, Professor Shelindar. Nalin, can we hear a little bit from you?
Yes, I mean, I would mainly echo what you and Shelindar said, that this was a very high-level debate, and it was an education for all of us to learn and to be made aware about the myriads of issues. And congratulations to all the panelists, all the debaters, all the participants. The point I want to make is one thing that struck me when I was listening to all the presentations, was how, in a case of a data and a fact-driven debate, making a case becomes so much more challenging, because you're not arguing an abstract motion. You've got to present facts and numbers and examples, and so many examples were being presented. So what struck me was the abundance of material that each panelist had to go in with, and had to choose just a certain amount of the facts that they had an opportunity to present. And I'm sure each one of them could have gone on for many more minutes and presented many more examples and supporting evidence. So they had to make very, very stark choices, and which is why it was so amazing to listen to. And the other important point I just want to make is that both sides had a very difficult task ahead of them, because one side had to make a case for amending and shifting ecological realities of natural boundaries and dealing with political fallouts. The other side had the remarkably difficult case to make, whereby they had to come up with a counter proposal to say that this is not going to be feasible, but here's a better way of doing it. So both sides had a very, very difficult task to get their case across. And the reason why, the fact that there is even a conflict in our own minds as judges, is proof that it was a very good debate, because when one side spoke, you tend to lean towards their argument, and the other side speaks, you lean towards their argument. So on the whole, it was a terrific debate, and I want to congratulate every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. I think everyone's a 10 out of 10 today. They were just great. So is it okay if we announce the winners now? Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay. So the overall winner is on the against side, but we also wanted to mention the person on the for side who we felt was the winner of the for side. So I'll tell you the overall winner first, and then I will tell you the person who was on the other side that we felt did really well. So, as one of the participants said today, 3, 2, 1, the winner is Advik Uni from the GEMS New Millennial School in Dubai. So congratulations to Advik. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a great debate and I really loved all the points. And well done to everybody who debated today. It was amazing. Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, so as I said, Advik was on the against side. So if we look at the for side, we also had 5 speakers on the for side, and we felt the person who did the best job on the for side was Shudsika Basu from Kolkata. So Shudziku, congratulations. You did really well arguing for the proposition.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been an honor being part of this competition. It was very enriching. Thank you so much.
But actually, all of you are winners. Don't forget that. And I hope that some of you will at least keep in touch with each other and reach out to each other, because I'm sure as you were watching the debate today, you were admiring some skill sets of your competitors. And so it would be good to learn from each other. So please keep in touch. And, you know, we hope SaiU University hopes to see all of you in the incoming classes in the next few years. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dawn. If there are, if the results are fantastic and the details of the other participants will reach out to you from the organizing committee soon. Meanwhile, may I please call upon our Vice Chancellor, Professor Bharucha, to give the last few words before we close the event with our chairpersons later.
Thank you. I think I'm just overwhelmed. I echo what some of the judges said. When I think back to when I was your age, I was naive beyond belief. And I think the sophistication that each and every one of you has brought to the debate, as well as the participants who did not make it to the final, is really awesome. A lot of people are skeptical about the future of our Earth, about the environment, about inequity, about our ability to sustain and support the population of our Earth with basic rights, water being one of them. I don't agree with them. I have great hope and great confidence because I see that you all are going to do better than we did. So thank you so much and congratulations. Your parents should be proud. Your teachers should be proud. Your schools should be proud. And I have no doubt that each and every one of you is going to have a path to fulfill your dreams.
Thank you so much.
I thought, IPLs are all more exciting on Saturdays. I think this was even better. And with this, I just would like to make the concluding remarks. So good evening, first of all, to everyone. Congratulations to participants and the winners of War of the Words, SaiU's very first international inter-school debate competition. Kudos to all the participants for giving us such an insightful thoughts on today's topic. It was indeed a pleasure to listen to you today. On behalf of SaiU, I wish to thank all the participating school principals, counselors, teachers, administrators for your support. Without you all, this was never possible. I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Dawn, Dr. Shelindar, and Mr. Nalin to spare this precious time for judging the exciting competition. Thank you to the parents for encouraging all the children to participate in this competition. Thank you to Mr. Ramni for your grateful support. Thank you to Dr. Bharucha for your guidance and encouragement. Sincere thanks to all my colleagues. And I would like to appreciate the contribution of my colleagues Anusha, Nilay, Sheetal, Ranjit, Neha, Nandini for the immense contribution. And this is not the this is just the beginning of the events and the competitions that we have started at SaiU. We will be coming out with more exciting competitions. So please keep follow us on our social media handles. watch us, watch the space, which is the Buzz at SaiU on our website for further events coming up. So good luck and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, once again. And with that, we officially come to the end of this wonderful competition. Till we announce our second and the third and the next after. Have a good evening and enjoy yourselves today. Thank you so much.